BS Free Witchcraft is a production of the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network. Nerd and Tie produces podcasts ranging from actual play to true crime, and you can find more at nerdandtie.com or join our Discord by going to nerdandtie.com/Discord. Welcome to BS Free Witchcraft, your monthly guide to the Modern Witchcraft Movement. Mine's a lot of the usual, bullshit. I'm your host, Trey Dorn. We have made it to June of 2024 somehow. And this month, we're just going to be talking about just the audacity of it all. And you'll understand why in a moment. Before we get there, though, just a pinch of housekeeping. Remember that next month we are doing the monthly feedback episode where I answer your questions and you tell me what you think, and that's the whole episode. Every July we do that, and to do that we need your questions. And if you would like to ask a question, all you have to do is go to bsfreewitchcraft.com/contact and fill out the form. That's it. We anonymize any answers, so we're not going to say your name. I will read your question and I will answer your question. We've gotten a bunch of good ones already. I'd like to get some more though, because I like to diversify the topics that we're talking about. But if you want to have your question answered on the show, you have to get to bsforwitchcraft.com/contact and get your questions submitted by July 11th, 2024 for this year's episode. July 11th. Because I need to have time to record the show in time to go out to the Patreon. Because remember, these episodes go live a week early for Patreon paid subscribers. So, I need them by July 11th. So just go to bsfreewitchcraft.com/contact and fill that out. And then one last thing, and I swear I'm not going to plug these every episode, but I do want to remind you guys that my fiction novels, The Witch and the Rose, which came out earlier this year, that is still available, but also its sequel, Bloody Damn Right, just came out within the last 2 weeks. So both are available on ebook, in paperback, and I will have links to to purchase these down below, along with the ISBNs for people who want to get them through a non-Bezos bookstore. Because the ISBN for other stores is different than the one listed on Amazon. I'll list the ISBN. That's it. Now I will stop plugging my own stuff, and we will get to what we're here for. Because if you've been on WitchTok in the month of June, I know not all of you are on TikTok. I know some people rely oddly on me to find out what's happening on TikTok, which is sad and scary because I'm barely clued into what's going on. If you've been anywhere near WitchTok in the month of June of 2024, you might be familiar with Return the Stone, a hashtag which requires a little bit of explanation. So, here's some clips.
Magical things I respectfully and with permission collected in Scotland. Let me share this with you. But one of the things that I did was I took these little baggies and a Sharpie with me to Scotland. Please understand, everything that I collected off the ground respectfully and with permission. I did not disturb, break, anything, okay? But in this bag, it was the things that I collected from Clava Cairns. And if you know anything about that, Outlander, this is the place where it inspired Diana Gavinton to the stones that Claire traveled through. This is what I picked up from there. Piece of wood, a little pine cone, and a piece of granite. Yeah.
5 minutes later. You know how Bree Witch is up on her page just now and she's posting loads of videos of her trip out to Scotland? Well, I'm glad she had a great time. But you know how the stone that she's got, that she took from the pathway of Clava Cairns, that's from a site that's 4,000 years old? Did she tell you what that site was? That site is an ancient burial site. She had the audacity to take a stone from the pathway at Clava Cairns burial site. For all of yous out there that have Scottish ancestry and that are connected to Scotland, she has just shat all over the gravesite of your ancestors.
A lady from America visited Scotland. She went to Clava Cairn, which is a sacred burial ground, and she took one of the stones from the monument and took it back to Florida. A lot of people aren't happy about it. What I'm going to say to you is that Scottish heritage is vital to Scotland. It's vital not only to the communities that live in these areas and have done for many, many years. Secondly, the history that comes with this has a deeper connection to Scotland than it can ever have to a tourist. Have wrongfully taken something that doesn't belong to you, you should always return it.
Meanwhile,
What you don't know, and I will share it now, there is a video that is being edited now that will prove that this is not about a stone. It will prove that a group of individuals are attempting to bully me and cancel me off of social media.
meanwhile,
The Clava Cairns is an ancient Neolithic burial site located in the northeast of Scotland, more specifically Culloden in Inverness, and it has over 2,000 years of history attached to it. Not only that, it has a nifty little curse attached to it too, that a few people over the past few decades have allegedly experienced. But Joe, what does this curse entail? Let me tell you. The curse goes something a little bit like this. Not a stone is to be taken from this sacred site, or you will live to regret it.
You cannot tell me that bits of that 4,000-year-old cairn doesn't get chipped away. Can't get blown. So you cannot tell me for sure that you've not picked up a piece of the cairn. 4,000 years old. Christ, we get all seasons in one day. 4,000 years of weather. Fuck my life. Why don't you get it? Why are you being supported? Why are you not taking accountability?
It's a grave site. I don't care what witchy spells you require or rocks for, it's a grave site. Not only that, it is a site that receives a lot of tourist footfall per year, more than it can actually handle, and the site's actually becoming damaged as a result of that. Look at the damage that's been done at Culloden Battlefield because of the number of people walking in that area and all the infrastructure that they've had to put in place in order to deal with this influx of tourism. And you've gone online, you've taken things from that you've taken this rock, which you really shouldn't have taken. The tour guide shouldn't have handed it to you. He had no right to do that, he shouldn't have done it. But you're one person. The problem is that you've gone online and you've bragged about it and you've justified it and trying to say that it's okay to do that. I don't care if that rock came from the path. I don't care if you literally lifted a stone off the cairn itself. It's not yours. It's not yours for you to take.
1 week later.
So I had a Scottish creator reach out to me, and we had a nice conversation in our DMs. And he offered to give me his address so I can return the stone, and he will take it to the Clava Cairns. So I am going to pivot, and I am going to mail the stone out this week to him.
So for those of you who need a little bit more explanation than that, to sum things up, this witch talker, Brenda Spears, who calls herself Bree Witch, that's her username, that's what she calls herself on TikTok, went on a trip to Scotland, and while she was there, she took a tour of Clava Cairns, and she took a rock. This is bad, because the one thing you don't want to ever do from a heritage site is take a stone or a rock or anything that's like, especially a place like Clavacairns, which is in Inverness. And look, I like Outlander just like everybody else. I don't know if just like everybody else, but anyways, Frank got done dirty. I don't think I need to litigate about how you shouldn't take stuff from heritage sites. I don't care if it's a pebble on the path. I don't care. You don't do it. You just don't do it. Like, regardless of any specifics about this specific place in Scotland, you don't just take stuff from heritage sites. You don't. It's disrespectful in almost any context. And I think that story seems to be resolving. Maybe it's, as of recording this episode, which is, I'm recording this on Thursday, June 20th. So as of a random evening on the summer solstice, she says she's shipping the stone back to Scotland. I don't know if that will happen or not, but that's what she's saying. And the reason why I bring it up is not just to dogpile on an idiot. Like, I didn't make a TikTok about this for a reason. Like, I didn't dogpile on here because I didn't think my voice was going to add anything to it, or people had it covered. It was a pretty universal moment across. Well, no, it wasn't. There were some people who were in Brewick's camp, and of course there were, but the people worth listening to were on the right side of this. But what it makes me want to talk about is a larger problem that we've kind of danced around on this show. Kind of a core root issue that I have with a lot of people in the modern witchcraft movement. And it is just, it's what led her to think that she could take the stone. We're going to talk about the arrogance and audacity and entitlement that is just here. Because in many ways, we've all been guilty of it from time to time. But some of us are doing our best not to be that way. And now I know, before I get started, there are those of you who are going to go, Trey, on this show, specifically on this show, you sound like an arrogant jackass a lot of the time. And that is true. I am judgmental. I'm not, I would be lying if I would be at least deeply self-unaware to not know. But I feel like what I'm talking about specifically is not just ever being smarmy or never being, but the arrogance of self, because I've also repeatedly said on this show that I am not any more important than any other witch, right? That I come firmly from the philosophy that as witches, we are all on an equal, we are supposed to be operating on an equal level. This should be a discussion amongst peers. I am not looking down on anyone. I am not viewing myself as any more important than you. I am no more important than you are. And I hope that attitude comes through in what I'm saying and what I'm saying. But if it's not, that is how I actually feel. But I do believe, though, firmly in holding people to to account for what they do and what they say. And if I see someone acting like, there's a difference between me sitting on a call and being smug and somebody thinking that they're so important that they can violate a sacred site for a souvenir. Like, I feel like maybe these are in different categories. Because it takes arrogance, it takes audacity to go to a place like that and think that it is just, you can just take things. You can just take stuff. It is remarkable that people think that that's okay. And I wish it was rare. Like, this isn't a situation where one witch was screwing this up. Places like Clavacairns have problems with people taking stuff for a long time. This is not new behavior. Bewitched, Brenda Spears, she got caught because she told people she did it. Like, if she had never put that on the internet, no one would have known. Now, it's important that someone who puts it out there gets called on it, because it's important for people to understand that when someone comes out publicly and says they're doing it, that it is like known that this is an unacceptable behavior. Because yeah, she told on herself. There are countless people who are doing things like that who are not saying anything, who we don't know about. But hopefully in the future, some people will see the reaction that is had and not make that same choice. Because it's gonna happen again, and it has happened before. And because there are people who think that they are entitled to do so. And we see this attitude in so many places, right? Like, if we go back to the previous episode, the episode that we just put out last month about the I Hate This Book, where I reviewed specifically Anwin Avalon's Celtic Goddess Grimoire. And one of the problems, and it's the problem I have with a lot of witchcraft books, is there is an arrogance and self-importance. Like, one of the reasons why people think that Bewitched, the Brenda Spears, thought it was okay to take a stone is because she wasn't thinking about it. Her perspective was, I don't want to say main character energy, but like the idea that she thinks she is focusing on a very self-centered point of view, right? That she's the protagonist in the story. And what we see a lot in witchcraft spaces of people thinking of themselves as important or more important. And that is because one of the reasons that people get into witchcraft is they want to feel special. And people who have this attitude in other parts of their lives too. And that's like one of the problems I had with this book, and that I have with a lot of other witchcraft books, is the self-importance of the author, where the author wants to be, like, thinks of themselves, or at least attempting to present themselves as important. And I think it's really indicative of people who grew up in a culture that they view the world as theirs for the taking, and they don't understand why they can't have something, because they've spent their lives with permission to have the things. Some people talk about this taker culture, but I just want to simplify things and not go down that route fully. I think it's indicative of a couple of things. People talk about being a colonialist mindset, and that is definitely a part of it, right? Like, but if you tell people that it's a colonizer mentality, they'll switch off right away. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. But I want to talk about it from a different direction here for a second. So, in the United States, Christianity is the dominant religious form, right? And statistically, even Americans who came up into witchcraft came from Christian households, like 9 times out of 10. And besides the fact that people don't necessarily process the religious traumas, that just because you walk away from the Christian faith doesn't mean you walk away from all the attitudes that you were brought up with it. Now, when we talk about like people taking from other cultures without permission, we see this especially with like Native American stuff, where we committed a genocide against the various different indigenous nations of the Americas, and then white people did that and then turned around and fetishized their spirituality and even made up new stuff to sound more authentic because of all of it, and just fetishized the crap out of it. And so yeah, it's this dual thing where we committed genocide and then fetishized them at the same time. And now, obviously, like, there is the colonial, like, those who are completely unaware will just fetishize and not think about it, right? They're not even thinking about the fact that the genocide occurred. But what you get to this wall is, so people who brought up in Christianity is a conversionist religion, right? And so Christianity will do anything, like, there are certain sects of Christianity will do anything to get you to sign up. And it has, while some are very, hardline, others will like, go, okay, well, yeah, no, syncretism, right, man, you can keep doing your thing, just say it's for Jesus and it'll be fine, right? Anything. They want their religion to be assimilated into the cultures because that's part of the conversion process, right? And so they get this attitude when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to things that, well, if this can be taken, why can't that be taken? And so you'll get these people who will, in the case of, say, I'm just using indigenous practices as an example, but there are people who will recognize the genocide as being wrong, right? They will recognize the genocide as being wrong, and because that, they think they're a good person. Which is always a relative thought, and we should always look at good and bad at our actions and not as values core of a whole, but, it's... they will recognize the genocide as bad, but still take from those indigenous groups, even when those indigenous groups don't want you to, because they have been raised in a society where the dominant religious spirituality wants people to take from it, right? Like, it's, how many times have you seen a Christian coworker try to talk your non-Christian friends into putting up a Christmas tree? Or asking why they just can't do that, right? You attempt to dominate the culture by making your practices normalized. So people who came up with that, aren't I normalizing their culture by just taking things hollowly? And if you've ever spoken to indigenous people or people from any minority group or who practice minority religions, or, are members of, say, certain ethno-religions, like, their stuff isn't up for grabs. They don't want their stuff to be up for grabs. And so you have these people who, like, we characterize, it is a form of colonialism, do not get me wrong, but we always characterize people with colonial mindsets as, like, wanting to take and not recognizing, like, atrocities and things like that. But no, these people have it's so ingrained, this mindset, that even when they recognize, even when they're capable of recognizing that it's not, like, even when they're capable of recognizing the wrongs that are done, they're not capable, they have a blind spot when it comes to actually taking practices. Like, we talk about this in the cultural appropriation episode. We talk about this in the finger waggling episode. I talked about it in the book. Like, there is this core arrogance and entitlement which exists in so many people in the modern witchcraft movement that is wholly unexamined. And I guess it just drives me nuts that in theory, so many of these people claim that they are trying to practice witchcraft for a deeper insight into self and the universe, and they have not even taken one moment to look in the mirror. Like, witchcraft doesn't have to be about enlightenment, by the way. It doesn't. It can just be about, like, cursing the guy who pissed you off. Right? Like, that's fine. If that's why you're into witchcraft, great. Do that. Kick their ass. But these are often the same people who claim that they're here for enlightenment, for gaining some sort of true knowledge, but because they aren't willing to examine that part of themselves, even when directly confronted about it, it contradicts the very mission that they claim is the purpose that they're doing it. And I want to be clear, like, there have been situations where, like, on WitchTok and places like that, where I see people talking and they take a tone, and it's the same tone that I see in N1 Avalon's book. It's the self-important, I'm so special. It's the finger waggling. I talked about it in finger waggling, and it got to the point where, like, one guy blocked me because I just laughed at his very self-serious, dramatic video of how important witches are and all this stuff, and guy blocked me so hard. He said I was doing it for clout. I've never done anything for clout. If I am way too lazy to do anything for clout. But because he assumed that I was doing things for the reasons that he was doing things. For the self-important. And again, it infects our books, affects everything. Now, the good news is that it's not everybody, right? Like, most of the witches I talk to and I'm friends with are not like this, right? I have hope. Like, I have hope that we can get to a state in our culture where we don't feel the need to do this. Because it's two kinds of people, right? There are these people who are genuinely that arrogant, and then there are people who are putting on a overconfident front who are feeling deeply insecure. And it's a mix of the two, and you can't always tell them apart, right? It's because it's why people will get into witchcraft for like 6 months and then start making how-to videos because, like, they want to be the great teacher, sit at the foot of the great teacher, finger waggling. And they're deeply insecure about what they're doing, but others are literally that confident that they know what they're doing. They are every solitary Wiccan who read one book who jumped on a Tumblr like reblog with the discourse in 2014 yelling at non-Wiccans that they needed to mind threefold, even though a lot of Wiccans don't even believe in threefold. So it's like this isn't new. This has been an endemic thing. Now I have hope, like, not every book is Celtic Goddess Grimoire. Like, Brina Guerin, friend of the show, is writing good stuff. Wasn't gonna bring this up this episode, but like, if you want hope coming from me and like that leaders in our group, I just got sent a book from Llewellyn because talking about having Thumper Forge, who I'm TikTok mutuals with, but talking about bringing him onto this show. We haven't decided or not, but like they sent me a copy of Virgo Witch, which he's credited as they are credited as co-author on, and they for contrast, one of the reasons why I hated Celtic Goddess Grimoire by Avalon was the smug, self-important tone of the text. And now, this is not an endorsement. This is not a review. I have only read small parts of this book. I am not endorsing or do anything of the sort because I have barely read any of it. But I did jump straight to a section explicitly written by Thumper, by Thumper Forge, and it was not that. It was good. It was refreshing. It was the tone I want out of my witchcraft books. Now, I don't know if the rest of the book is any good, because again, I haven't read it yet, but I was immediately greeted with a down-to-earth, normal human, not self-aggrandizing, which, like, I feel like that should be a bare minimum in 2024 in witchcraft books, but somehow it isn't. So actually made me excited to read the rest of this thing. My thoughts will come out eventually on this book. Maybe not in a podcast, but I will definitely be saying things about whatever. But at the very least, whether I end up liking this book or not, at the very least, it made me feel relief to know that there are in our community rational voices. I mean, I knew that about Thumper because, again, I've been following Thumper on TikTok for a while, but it's nice to see it in print. So I have hope. But what I'm really begging you and everyone is to really examine, take a look in the mirror, try to find 5 minutes to go am I acting like an entitled, arrogant jackass? Because everyone has acted like that from time to time, and maybe you should look at yourself in the mirror. You don't need to tell anyone how special you are, right? If you actually have self-value and self-worth, you don't have to tell people how special you are. You can just exist as a person. Don't waggle your fingers at me or anyone. It's weird. It's weird. So yeah, arrogance and audacity. They are a problem plaguing our community, and I don't know what to do with it other than just yell, stop it. And the worst part is that the people who have listened this far into this episode, who are in my audience, are probably, you might be the problem, but you're probably not the problem, because anyone who's tolerated me for this long at this point in the episode is probably okay. But even if you think you're okay, take 5 minutes. Just sow a little doubt in there for 5 seconds and be like, should I be doing this? Is that okay? Maybe. And please don't ask me if I think it's okay, because often people do that sometimes, and I'm just like, you think I know what the hell I'm doing? Anyways, I know that was a little bit of a ramble. Hopefully that was a helpful thing for me to put out this month. But as we bring things home, please remember that next month is the feedback Q&A episode, where you can get me to answer any kind of dumbass question. And July 11th is your deadline for getting those in. July 11th, 2024. That is your deadline for sending me questions. Please remember that this show is brought to you by our lovely Patreon patrons who are dear and close to my heart. And I want to give a shout out to people at the shout out level of Lindsay Dosey, Bruce Norville, Courtney, Claire Dennis, Kayla Burkowski, Simon Geringer, and Pamela Stariak. Remember, for just $1 a month, to get episodes like this a whole week early, and occasionally get my behind the scenes thoughts and random things, because I don't shut up about stuff. But you also get the show a week early. And you can find my Patreon at patreon.com/TRAEGORN. Remember, if you cannot afford to support the show on Patreon, I get it. Just subscribe on YouTube. Share it with your friends, because remember, these episodes do go up on YouTube besides going up on the podcast feeds. Besides that, you can follow me on social media. My TikTok is at TRAEGORN. I'm kind of on and on phase, maybe not. I'm inconsistent on the platform, but I'm there. My main social network that I am most of the time on is still Tumblr. It will always be Tumblr, and you can find me at traegorn.tumblr.com. Remember, we want to talk to you and have conversations with you, though, and we have launched a set of forums. They're small, but we like them. It's nerdandtie.social. That is because we are part of the Nerd and Tie podcast network, and it's an independent forum because we are trying to become less reliant on social media platforms and large companies. And I know it's a hard sell to get people to join a web forum in 2024, but we've made sign up as easy as we can. And honestly, like, we need to be moving off of platforms owned by other people. If that is a mission that we're trying to do, is to become more independent and not reliant on other platforms. So nerdandtie.social, because remember, we are a part of the Nerd and Tie podcast network, and you can find more shows at nerdandtie.com, including The Meat Grinder Season 4, which is coming out right now. It's the first season where I'm not the GM. I am just playing. My favorite episode so far that's come out is episode 3. I get to play my favorite character in that. The Meat Grinder is an anthology actual play series where every season's a new story, and everybody's going to die a lot. It's the whole point of the show is that all the characters die constantly and replaced by other characters who filter in. Everybody ends up playing a lot of different characters throughout the entire season. This is a horror anthology series for the most part. Season 2 is not really horror, but season 4 is definitely the most horror season of all of them. But it's still fun because they're us playing characters and not like real people. So, and you can find more information about that and all the other podcasts in the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network at nerdandtie.com. And remember, just gonna plug it one last time on the way out the door. Both The Witch and the Rose and Bloody Damn Right are available right now at. You can either buy them on Amazon or order them through your local bookseller, and they are queer contemporary fantasy, and they are fun. They are fiction, and they are fun. With that, Magicians, I have other social media, but I put them up on screen on the video, and I'm not going to bother saying them because, you can follow the show on Facebook at facebook.com/bsfreewitchcraft. I'll mention that one. Because I already mentioned TikTok and Tumblr, and I'm not going to mention Twitter or any of the other stuff because you know why. With that, we are wrapping things up, and that, Magicians, I will talk to you guys next month. Remember, dirt in our fingernails, brick in our hands, and this again next time. Hopefully this episode wasn't terrible. I recorded it twice.